Now we have the Python data types. We have the Python data types. So what is basically, or what is a data type? A data type or data types define the kind of data that can be stored and manipulated in a programming language. So these data types determine the operation that can be performed on the data and the memory required to store that data. Okay, the memory required to store that data, yeah, and then the operation that you want to perform, right? So that is how we can define a data type. Generally, a data type represents the type of the data that is present inside a variable. For example, I defined my variable here, okay, a. So I have my 20. 20 is a kind of a data type that I have. When I say 20, that means this value is an integer. This value is an integer. What do I mean by an integer? An integer is a data type or a value without a decimal place. That is what I mean by an integer. And then we have a float. Okay, we have a float. Assuming we have 15.02. So you see now I have a fractional part. So I will call this a float data type. A float data type. A float data type, we have a decimal place, right? So these different data types defines the kind of memory storage that we want to have for our variables. So the importance of a data type or understanding and correctly using data types is crucial for efficient programming. So there's a case where you want to have fractional parts in your data. Yeah, for example, I want to define the student's marks. So the student marks, in some cases, they will have the decimal places. Currency, yeah. For example, I'm defining my currency in US dollars. So I will have the decimal places to represent the cents. Okay, so that is the key reason why we need to understand the concept of data types. So using appropriate data types ensures accurate data representation. That is for proper optimal memory usage and correct execution of operations, right? And then we have some common data types, which I already said about an integer. Okay, so we have integers data types, we have strings data types, we have boolean data types, we have lists data types, we have tuples data types, sets, and then we have dictionaries, right? So that is some of the common data types that we have in Python. So when you talk about integers data types, so an integer is a whole number without a fractional part. Okay, it is a whole number without a fractional part. Just like the way I said, I define a variable a, and then my variable a stores a value 20. so it does not have a fractional part. Another thing that we need to note is integers can either be positive or they can be negative. Yeah, so I can have my a as 20, or I can have my a as negative 27. Okay, so they can either be positive or negative. What about floats? Floats are numbers with a fractional part. Yeah, are numbers with a fractional part. So I can say I have, for example, n. Okay, this n, I'm defining my float data type. Yeah, I can say I have 5.7. So here I have a fractional part. Okay, so that is floats. So they can represent both whole numbers and decimal fractions. If I have n or m as my another variable, and then I have as 5.0, that will still be a float because it has a fractional part. And then we have complex numbers or complex data types. So a complex data type or a complex numbers consists of two parts. One, it consists of the real part, and it consists of the imaginary part. We'll see much about this when we'll be doing our practical. So they are represented as a plus b j. That is how we represent a complex data type. So what does a, b, and j represent? A and b represents the real numbers, and j is the square root of -1, or is simply the imaginary part in our complex data type. Right? So that is the complex data type. And then we have strings data type. That is our fourth data type that we are going to discuss. So when we talk about a string data type, is simply a sequence of characters enclosed in either single quotes or double quotes. For example, I want to represent the name of the student, or I want to represent the student names. Okay, I want to represent the student name. So in that case, I'll say, I have a equals our name I assign it to John. So this is a string. It is enclosed in double quotes. Okay, it's simply a sequence of characters. I have J, O, H, and N. Right? I hope up to this point, hopefully everything is clear. So we have said a string is a sequence of characters enclosed in either single quotes or double quotes. So Python provides various built-in methods to manipulate and modify strings, such as concatenation, slicing, and replacing. So we'll also discuss about different ways that we can manipulate our string. So I can, for example, have my first string as John, yeah, and then I have another string. This is name 1, and then I have name 2. So I can say this is maybe let's say Sharon. Okay, so I have these two strings. I can combine these two strings using a Python built-in functions. We discussed about this in our data sessions. So I can have John and Sharon combined. That is, I can have John and Sharon. Yeah, so we'll see how we can combine these strings. Or I can split the string John into two parts. I can have my first part as J or JO, and then again I can have the second part as HN. Okay, so we can slice our strings. We can replace a string. For example, John. I want to remove John from my variable name 1 and replace it with Bernard, or let's say pen. Okay, so we can also replace a string. We will discuss about each of these Python functions, string functions, later. So some common operations we have include converting a string from uppercase to lowercase. For example, I can convert Sharon to uppercase, meaning S uppercase, H uppercase, O uppercase, R uppercase, and all the strings to uppercase. Or I can get these strings in lowercase, S lowercase, H lowercase, O lowercase, and all other strings in lowercase. So we perform this using the built-in functions. Okay, so that is some of the common operations that we have in the strings. Or we can check the length of a string. Checking the length of a string means I can check the total number of characters I have in this string. Okay, so for example, here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It will tell me I have a total number of 6 characters. So that is some of the common operations that we'll discuss later. And then we have boolean data types. So a boolean data type has only two possible values. It can either be true or it can be false. That is boolean data types. For example, we can have a conditional statement. Yeah, we can have a conditional statement that we expect to get a boolean result. Right? For example, I can say I have my variable. I've used the A many times. Let me use a different variable. Let me say I have K as my variable is less than 28. Okay, so I want to apply my boolean. I want to get a boolean outcome, and then I can say I have my variable J, and then I can say J is less than 20 or 10. So I will have a comparison. Sorry, let me do this. Let me assign it to 28 and 10. Okay, I'm assigning 28 to K, and then I'm assigning 10 to J. So I want to do a comparison of these two variables. Remember, K stores a value 28 and J stores a value 10. So I will have K, assuming I say is less than J. So these are conditional statements. So it's going to compare these two variables. My k is 28 and my j is 10. So it's going to check, is 28 less than 10, which is false. So it will give me an output of false. Okay, so that is for the Boolean data type. So we expect to get two possible values, that is either false or true. Or we can say we have k is greater than j, that is 28 is greater than 10, which is true. So this will give me an output of true. Okay, and this is false. Right, so that is something about the Boolean data types. So the Boolean data types applies on the conditional statements. Yeah, so Booleans are commonly used in conditional statements to evaluate whether a condition is true or a condition is false. We have logic operators. Python provides logic operators and or not that allow us to combine the Boolean values and perform logical operations. Okay, for example, we can assume we have a value k. So let's use this variables. You can say k. For example, not in j. So we are going to check if k is a value in j. So we are going to check if we have k in j. So we can either get a true or false. So 28, we don't have a 28 in j. So that means we'll get false. Okay. So also that is how we can use the Boolean data types in a logical operations. So far we've discussed 4 different data types. Not 4, 5. 1, we've discussed the integer data types, which we've said integer data types does not have a fractional part. We've discussed about the float data types, whereby we said the float data types does have a fractional part. We discussed about the complex data type, whereby we said the complex data type have 2 parts, the imaginary part and the real part. And then now we've discussed about, we also discussed about the strings data types, whereby we said that the strings data types is a sequence of characters enclosed in either single quotes or double quotes. So that is something about the string data type. Also, we've discussed about the Boolean data types, whereby we said the Boolean data types has 2 possible values, which is either true or false. So that's some of the data types